This reading is from Asil and the Not Date, which is a short story that came out just a couple months ago. It is in the world of her larger novels of Mercy Thompson, but it's the second in a series of 2 short stories that she's written about this character, Asil. So without further ado, I give you the opening of that short story. Asil and the Not Date. The old wolf ran, leaping over drifts of snow, his dark brown coat indistinguishable from black in the night. In the summer, his coloring meant he could easily run unseen in the Montana forests, but the snow made that an effect he didn't bother with. It was cold and the silence was deep in these woods, so different from the wilds of his youth. But Asil had been here for years now, and he ran most nights to excise the demons of memory and to calm the raging wolf who shared his skin. Even the cold that made the snow squeak under his paws was an ordinary and familiar thing, though he had been born to much warmer climes. Someday soon, he was sure, these runs would not be enough. His wolf would break free and start a killing rampage that only the Marok who ruled them all could stop. He wished that he was certain the Marok could stop him. They thought it vanity that he had come here for his death. He owned that vanity was one of his sins, but he knew, and the Marok knew, how deadly he was, how old he was. Just because he was vain did not mean he was wrong. Surrounded by mountain wilderness, his home allowed him privacy for the brutal change from wolf to human. When he stood once more in his human skin, Asil wiped off the excess snow and moisture with the towel he left on the porch swing for that purpose. Without his wolf's fur, the wolf's chill bit at his skin. Unlike someone wholly human, he could have stayed out all night without ill effects, but that didn't mean it was comfortable. When he was dry, he folded the towel neatly and returned it to the swing, drew in a deep breath of the cold air and waited. And waited. But the usual weight of depression, of an apathy that hindered his control of his wolf, did not burden his soul as it had daily the past few centuries. His old enemy was not vanquished, he could feel its touch, but for now it only lingered on the edges of his mind. Inside his house, his computer sounded the reception of an email. It could be an advertisement for potting soil from his favorite gardening site, or a note from his son who ruled Asil's old pack in Europe. Or it could be from concerned friends who had given him a particular gift for the Christian holiday season, the current reason that held his ennui at bay. In the words of Sir Arthur, there was a game afoot. He opened the door and walked naked into his home. There might have been, had he cared to admit it, a spring in his step. The email awaiting him was disappointing. He was the lucky recipient of a $100 Amazon gift card if he would participate in a survey by clicking the provided link. Asil deleted that email and another from a Nigerian businessman with bad grammar who would give him money, doubtless in return for his banking information. Asil rose from his computer desk and put on the clothing he'd taken off before his run. Fully clothed, he went into the kitchen to brew himself some tea in the hopes that the task would lend him some patience, which he should only need a little of. They had given themselves and him very little time. 5 dates from online dating sites chosen and set up by them, all to be completed in 2 weeks. He had finished 2 of them. The first email from his concerned friends had read, in part, "You should know that all of these people think they have been talking to you and are looking for you to bring a little spice into their lives. We have carefully chosen people we think would be very hurt to find out they were unwitting participants in a game. Some of us believe that you would not hurt a stranger just to avoid a little discomfort. Others think that knowing that we have informed the whole pack via email and instigated a betting pool will be a better incentive, especially since no one, so far, has bid on you attending more than 1 date. As blackmail, it was pretty effective. They, or possibly he or she, because Asil wasn't convinced 2 or more people could keep themselves secret from him, and he had not been able to discover who was at the heart of this, knew what moved him. Most people wouldn't have thought he would care that people's feelings would be hurt. Even so, he was pretty sure that no one but himself knew the biggest reason that he'd accepted. Inshallah. Asil had, in his very long life, accepted that Allah sometimes made use of his most disobedient servant. This game had, from the first, felt like one of those times. The first 2 dates had done nothing to disabuse him of that notion. The water had barely come to a boil when his computer chimed again. He waited until his tea had steeped before going back to his desk. "Dear Asil," he smiled and sat at the desk. "We admit your second date did not turn out quite as we expected. We had no idea that the must-love cats woman meant loving cats in the biblical sense. I hope not, muttered Asil, or we really will need to have a talk when this is all over and I find out who you are, my friends. To be fair, the dating site, when we contacted them, also had no clue that a certain subset of the population had begun to use their site for such meetups. We had a nice chat, and we feel certain that, in the future, they will actually do the background checks that their website promises. May we say that while we owe you apologies, again, for the unexpected way that one turned out, you once more managed to stay within the bounds of our bet. You were with your assigned date for 4 hours and 20 minutes. It did expose a loophole in our rules. We did not state that your date must be conscious for any of that time, let alone all of it. There were, somewhat to our surprise, considering the circumstances, no dead bodies. There is a slight possibility that Aaron Marks might not make it. We debated, but decided that since he has survived 48 hours after your date ended, and the damage he suffered was from the lioness and not you, we will grant that you have met the no dead bodies portion of the agreement. Since everyone involved was unable to run by the time the date ended, the lioness excluded, it could be argued that you were cheating. But wiser heads prevailed and gave you the nod. However, you are establishing some odd precedents, and we don't think that we would let anyone we cared very much for to date you. The Seattle Zoo accepted our anonymous donation for the care and welfare of the lioness and informed us that you had done the same. That was well done of you. Someday you will tell us how you managed that drive with an unhappy lioness in your backseat. Asil smiled. Maybe he would tell them. Maybe not. And that brings us to your next date. We will restate the rules you have agreed to. You must complete one date with your next victim, or selected person from an online dating site of your choice. That date must be at least 2 hours long, and you must spend at least an hour and a half of that with your date. No dead bodies, and neither you nor your date can run screaming out into the night. For your third date, we found a person who sounds very normal on platonicplantophiles.com, a meeting place for plant lovers. We would accept credit for this, but there were only 2 people listed on the site who were within a reasonable distance of your home. After the oddities involved in your first 2 dates of our bet, we did a thorough background check on both and chose the one we thought would be the least trouble. We trust that Tammy will be less dramatic than your last date. And this is the opening of this, of Asil and the not date.